The final horn blows, the gloves fly, confetti rains down, and for one night, the entire hockey world stops. Some players wait decades for this moment. Others shock the league in their first real shot. A few build dynasties that fans will talk about for generations. These are the Stanley Cup Final celebrations from the last 25 years, starting with the oldest and rolling all the way to the most recent. Let's relive every hoist, every pile-on, and every city-shutting parade.
Scotty, just tell me about the emotions you're feeling right now.
Well, I'm a little tired to feel anything, but it's unbelievable. I mean, this is a dream come true for our team and for myself, and it's just so exciting.
We start in the year 2000 with the New Jersey Devils back on top. They beat the Dallas Stars in 6 games for their second cup in 4 years. Scott Stevens and the Devils celebrated with the quiet confidence of a team that had already proven they belonged among the elite. For a franchise some parts of the country love to forget, they were awfully hard to ignore. Then, 2001 delivered one of the most emotional moments in Stanley Cup history. The Avalanche beat the Devils in 7 games. Captain Joe Sakic took the cup first, then immediately handed it to Ray Bourque. 22 long years, 0 rings. Bourque finally lifted it as the entire arena and the hockey world fought back tears. Patrick Waugh said it best, a name was missing from that cup. That night, it felt right again. 1 year later, a star-studded Detroit roster made it look easy. Steve Yzerman, Brendan Shanahan, Nicholas Lidstrom, Brett Hull, and Dominic Hasek, future Hall of Famers everywhere. The Red Wings won their 3rd cup in 6 years, celebrating like it was just another day at the office in the Motor City. The Devils came right back in 2003 to prove their earlier success was no fluke. Scott Stevens, Martin Brodeur, and that suffocating defense did it again. 3 cups in 9 years built on grinding, unglamorous winning hockey. Lightning finally struck in Florida in 2004. Dave Andreychuk, after 23 NHL seasons and 1,639 games, finally got his hands on the cup. Tampa Bay became Florida's first NHL champion, and the whole state threw one massive party. After a full season lost to lockout, hockey returned in 2006, and nobody saw this coming. Rod Brind'Amour hoisted the cup as the Hurricanes brought the first major professional sports title to North Carolina. Rookie goalie Cam Ward won the Conn Smythe. A franchise that moved from Hartford and got laughed at for years finally had the last laugh. Orange County got its one and only cup in 2007. Scott Niedermayer lifted it as captain, with his brother Rob right beside him on the same team. 2 brothers, 1 cup, 1 unforgettable night. Detroit was back in 2008, and they made a little history. Nicholas Lidstrom became the first European-born captain to hoist the Stanley Cup. It was the Wings' 11th title. The celebration included the cup getting dented at Chris Chelios's bar. They just hammered it back into shape. Nobody cared. A new superstar era was born in Pittsburgh in 2009. Sidney Crosby, just 21 years old and playing through a bad knee, became the youngest captain in NHL history to lift the cup after a Game 7 thriller. Days later, he flew it home to Nova Scotia by military helicopter and took it to a Tim Hortons. Cole Harbour lost its mind. Chicago ended a 49-year drought in 2010 with one of the most confusing cup-winning moments ever. Patrick Kane slipped the puck in during overtime of Game 6, then sprinted down the ice celebrating all by himself. Teammates didn't react. The crowd sat silent. Nobody had seen it go in. It became known as the Phantom Goal. It still counted. Jonathan Toews hoisted the cup at just 22 years old. Boston finally ended a 39-year wait in 2011. Zdeno Chara, all 6'9" of him, raised the cup as the TD Garden exploded. Tim Thomas stood on his head. An estimated 1.5 million fans flooded the streets for the parade. An 8 seed walked into the Stanley Cup Final in 2012 and shocked the hockey world. The Kings didn't lose a single road game in the final. Dustin Brown hoisted the first cup in franchise history. Hollywood finally had its hockey story. Game 6 against Boston. The Bruins were leading. Time was running out. Brian Bickle scored with 1:16 left. Dave Bolland scored 17 seconds later. 2 goals in 17 seconds. Chicago won the cup. Boston had already rolled out the champagne. Jonathan Toews lifted it for the second time in 4 years. LA did the impossible again in 2014. They came back from 3-0 deficits twice in the playoffs. Back-to-back champions in just 3 years. The Kings went from shouldn't be here to a budding dynasty.
Chicago closed the decade's first true dynasty in 2015. 3 cups in 6 years. Toews, Kane, and the United Center losing its collective mind. Chicago fans were basically professional parade goers by now. Pittsburgh started their own dynasty run in 2016. Sidney Crosby won his second cup and first Conn Smythe. The Penguins brought the party home after beating San Jose. Crosby spent part of his cup day visiting children's and veterans hospitals. Pittsburgh backed it up in 2017, the first back-to-back champions since the late 90s. They beat Nashville in 6 in one of the loudest buildings in the league. In the locker room, Crosby sat quietly with his mother and the cup. Sometimes, silence says everything. 13 years, 0 cups. Every postseason ending the same way. Until 2018. Alex Ovechkin lifted the cup and immediately started crying, then screaming, then celebrating like nobody else in sports. Keg stands, fountains, sleeping next to it, the whole thing. The DC parade with 2 million fans featured one very colorful speech. The FCC was not available for comment. January 3rd, 2019. The Blues were dead last in the NHL. By June, they were champions. They fired their coach, called up rookie Jordan Binnington, and went on a run for the ages. They beat Boston in Game 7 on the road. Alex Pietrangelo hoisted the cup while Gloria blasted. Superfan Layla Anderson kissed it on the ice. Pat Maroon came home to win it for his city. 52 years of waiting, over. The 2020 playoffs happened in a bubble. Empty arenas, no fans. Families separated for months. Tampa beat Dallas in 6. Back home, they held a boat parade on the Hillsborough River. Stamkos and others took the cup for a jet ski ride while fans lined the shores. Tampa came back for seconds in 2021. Stamkos even showed up to the parade in a back-to-boat shirt. Second cup in 10 months. Another boat parade, and this time the Stanley Cup got dented during the chaos. The keepers of the cup had to wrap it up carefully. The cup has survived worse, but Tampa did it twice. Colorado ended a 21-year wait in 2022. Injured captain Gabriel Landeskog still got to lift it first. Cale Makar dominated the playoffs. Nathan MacKinnon dropped to his knees at center ice. The best player without a cup conversation ended that night. A franchise that began play in 2017 won it all in just their 6th season. Vegas beat Florida in 5. Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and the Golden Knights partied down the Las Vegas Strip. William Karlsson wiped out on the way to the mic. Eichel went shirtless handing out necklaces. People said Vegas wasn't a real hockey market. Then 300,000 fans showed up to the parade. The 2024 final was pure drama. Florida led Edmonton 3-0, then watched the Oilers storm back to force Game 7. Sam Reinhart scored the cup winner and admitted on the ice he thought it wasn't real. Alexander Barkov became the first Finnish captain to hoist the cup. Coach Paul Maurice, after nearly 2,000 games without a ring, was handed the trophy by his backup goalie. He held it quietly for a moment before lifting it high. At the parade, the crowd chanted, "Thank you, Boston," at Brad Marchand. And then, Florida did it again. Back-to-back champions. The Panthers beat the Oilers in 6 games, closing it out with a dominant 5-1 win in Game 6. Alexander Barkov hoisted the cup for the 2nd straight year as the roster piled on in pure joy. South Florida threw another massive celebration, this time with a beach parade in the mid-90s heat. The Panthers spent years as the league's punchline. They are now a dynasty.
25 years, every hoist, every parade, every moment that made you forget where you were sitting. From Bork finally getting his name etched to Ovechkin losing his mind. From phantom goals to boat parades and back-to-back dynasties. That is what the Stanley Cup does to people. Which celebration hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments below. And if you've bled for any of these teams over the last 25 years, smash subscribe. We've got more legendary NHL history coming every week.